The real question is, how good of a job are you doing, and have you met the standards that are going to be expected of you?
With the price of what gold is at the moment, it means that material which can be down to less than 1 gram per tonne, between 0.5 and 1 gram per tonne of gold, can be economic. But the accuracy in assaying material to such small amounts is very, very difficult. And so, if you have a 10% difference in assay, it's significant when you're down at such low levels. And so accuracy of assays and confidence in assays becomes so much more important as metal prices become high and low-grade projects become more economic.
What I think has happened is because the rules were changed, and changed in large part because of BRIEX, the Canadian regulators brought in a new policy called 43101 reports. I think what's happened is that the issuers and the companies in the area have adapted to that policy, and they meet the requirements of that policy, but I think at some point the market's going to realize policy doesn't really do a very effective job. So until companies start to move away from just meeting those guidelines and into an area where they're doing meaningful due diligence type work, then the difficulty will be the policy wouldn't have prevented BRIEX, didn't prevent some other scandals in more recent years. And I think what we really have to look at is more third-party, independent, outside expertise, as opposed to letting it all be done in-house, which is the way it pretty much happens today.
And the problem gets more difficult as the gold price goes up, because as the gold price goes from $700-800 to over $1,000, that makes a lot of much lower gold grade deposits economically viable now. So we're assaying well below 1 gram per ton now, and getting into grades that where the success or failure of the project depends on correctly identifying the difference between 0.4 grams per ton and 0.5 grams per ton. And 15, 20 years ago, those were just waste grades.
Under the current OSC regulations of National Instrument 43101, a consultant is required to pay very close attention to the operations of a lab and the quality of their results. Any public disclosure of assay information of any type will require the approval of a qualified person. That person is the consultant, and he or she will be held legally accountable.
One of the main standards in the assay business is the ISO 9000 standardization, but that is primarily looking at what your operating procedures are, not necessarily coming in and looking at what the accuracy of your assay or the geochemical results are. Having a benchmark 6 come in and say your numbers are good, to me that is very valuable as far as marketing your business.
There was an important event that changed the way our industry works, and that was BRIEX, and there was a problem on an Indonesian gold play.
The old saying is you never know exactly how much gold there is in the ground until you shut the mine down. It's still true, but what we need to find are ways of reducing the difference between what investors think they're buying and what they actually turn out to buy when all is said and done.
In particular nowadays, where the cutoff grade for gold is being lowered every month or so, depending on the increase in gold price.
It is a hard thing to get right, and I think a lot of the people that work on both sides of the fence, in mining companies and in labs, spend a lot of time trying to get it right, and there's a lot of things they have to keep track of. But it is an area where I think constant vigilance is required, and where we're always looking for ways of continuously improving what we're doing. Better procedures, better protocols, better equipment, better training, better software, all the way along. We just have to keep on attending to what's fundamentally a very difficult problem.
if I had like benchmark 6, again I would use that, because this is another part of doing due diligence.
I was part of a committee that was established by the CIM a dozen years ago. It was probably a dozen years ago, where the CIM realized that as an industry we needed to show the public and help industry professionals with best practices. And so we documented what we believed were what were best practices at the time. And those best practices have evolved. But I was part of that committee. For a company like mine, we're working across the world. And there's some labs, we have choices of labs. That's right, when we have choices of labs for our own projects. So we're developing a project where sometimes we'll take a lab that the previous project people used, and we'll use them. In other cases, we'll be, in the case we're evaluating a project for an acquisition, we want to be able to get a feel for what was the lab like. Sometimes we don't know that. I think this is where benchmark 6 is going to help us.
The QA/QC involved with metallurgical test work at times is not as rigorous as it should be, and the reason for that is because laboratories tend to have in-house or external QA/QC programs in place. Often clients are reluctant to spend additional money to review those programs or have second opinions. Benchmark 6 would get around that issue and give the high level of confidence to metallurgical test work results.
I think benchmark 6 could be of a real benefit to a laboratory like Inspectorate with any level of involvement. And I think that if benchmark 6 was involved in internal QA/QC, overseeing procedures, overseeing how the QA/QC is actually embedded in the sample string, having the ability to get the results from the embedded QC and then chart it out, maybe provide us the tools, or it could even just be the reports themselves that give us trend analysis and be able to spot problems. To have somebody like benchmark 6 with their very deep experience and technical abilities to be able to analyze the internal QA/QC, that would be a real benefit to the laboratory's operations.
I think benchmark 6 would definitely help me come into a corporation or a project held by a corporation who subscribes to the service.
I think it gives you a sense of confidence that the results are valid. And nowadays, when you do exploration work, particularly for precious metals, and you want to make sure that the results are accurate because you're dealing with such low precision levels. And most of the ore bodies that are found nowadays are either hidden or blind. So it's very much dependent on the accuracy of the lab results.
Well, I think from that perspective, again, it comes back to when you're handling internal control, you're generally reworking the wheel. You're doing the same thing over and over again. Having a company like benchmark 6 come in, review that process, give ideas to improve it, that would be an asset.
We live in an environment where regulators have been pressured by the public to try and send more directors and officers to jail. And so I think we're going to see more and more trials, but what you hope is that as the benchmark 6 type processes unfold, we're not going to see more and more directors going to jail for failure to be duly diligent.
I think benchmark 6 would have the greatest positive impact on Inspectorate Lab if it was more involved in operations and providing guidance and insight, the expertise to help us with our QA/QC system, spot deficiencies, and provide us with the know-how that it has that would help us.
It would assist in the efficiency of what we do by adding confidence in the assay results that are being achieved. It would take away the necessity for detailed checking, which we currently do, and potential re-assaying of samples to confirm results from assay laboratories.
You know, having a benchmark 6 report can be an asset to a lab because you're continually struggling with your quality control. You're wanting to keep improving. You're wanting to be out there in the market as a reliable, dependable lab. And having those reports on a month or quarterly basis can allow you as a lab or a lab manager to show your competitors, show your clients, show your potential clients that you're at the height, that you're providing the quality service that they need. It could really provide, you know, smaller labs up to the larger scale labs a real level of achievement and quality.
I will say, and I'm sure Mo shares this conviction, that the mining industry by and large is replete with people who have a very strong desire to do great work. And we like being involved with people like that.
There will be change. There's always change. The industry, whether we're here or not, is going to change. I think we will have an effect on how the industry thinks about the importance of reliable data. I think a couple years after we've launched, I think people will take a look at what Benchmark 6 is providing and say that this is a better industry because of what Benchmark 6 is doing. People are having to work a little bit harder in some cases. In some cases, people who were already working hard now have proof of the benefits of that hard work.